Artificial General Intelligence. AGI. It's a term that gets thrown around everywhere. And usually, it's painted as either our greatest achievement or our biggest existential threat. But the truth? Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. Today, we're going to dive into a brilliant analysis from educator and consultant Dr. Vernette Grant to really cut through all that noise, unpack the real challenges, and look at the huge societal shifts that AGI is already kickstarting. So let's get into what AGI really is.
And that right there, that's the big question, isn't it? It's what fuels all the excitement and, yeah, a lot of the fear. But to get a real answer, we have to push past the headlines. We need to understand what's actually going on in the labs, what's still just pure speculation, and, most importantly, what it means for every single one of us right here, right now.
So, first things first. Before we can even begin to wrap our heads around what AGI is, we've got to be crystal clear on what it isn't. Because believe me, the gap between the Hollywood version and the scientific reality is, well, it's massive.
When most people hear AGI, this is the image that pops into their heads, right? You've got sentient robots, all-knowing supercomputers, the whole sci-fi shebang. And look, it's a powerful image for sure. It's captivating. But it also sets a completely misleading expectation for where the technology is today.
Okay, so here's the crucial difference. The AI we use every day, the assistant on your phone, the large language models, it's unbelievably specialized. It's a master at finding and predicting patterns for one specific task. True AGI, on the other hand, would be a whole different beast. It wouldn't just see patterns, it would actually generalize knowledge from one thing to another, come up with its own goals, and truly reason. That ability to generalize, that's the game changer.
So why haven't we gotten there yet? If we know what we need, why is that gap so hard to cross? Well, it turns out that building a general intelligence is, without a doubt, one of the hardest scientific puzzles we have ever tried to solve. Let's take a look at some of the major roadblocks.
And these aren't just small technical glitches. They are fundamental challenges. This isn't just about throwing more data at the problem. We need machines to understand cause and effect. Why something happens, not just that it happens. They have to get good at long-term planning, and they need to learn by physically interacting with the world. That's a concept called embodied intelligence. And maybe the biggest hurdle of all, they need to learn on their own, without us holding their hand every step of the way.
Of course, researchers aren't just sitting around stumped. They're tackling these problems from all sorts of different angles. We're seeing everything from models that can process text, images, and sound all at once, to systems that are literally inspired by the wiring of the human brain, to new frameworks trying to give AI more autonomy, more agency.
And this quote just nails it. It really captures what most experts in the field are thinking. The road to AGI probably isn't just about making our current models bigger and force-feeding them the entire internet. It might take a whole new breakthrough, a completely different way of thinking about what intelligence even is.
Okay, this brings us to a really, really important point: the hype. There's just this massive bubble of hype around AGI, and it's so important to learn how to see past the flashy promises and focus on the real, actual progress happening on the ground. Let's use a perfect example we can all relate to: self-driving cars. You remember, right? A decade ago, the predictions were flying. We were told fully autonomous cars would be all over our streets by 2020. The hype was absolutely off the charts. And here we are. The tech has gotten so much better, it's incredible. But that final step, that true level 5 handle anything the world throws at it autonomy, it's still just out of reach. It's a powerful lesson that the real world is infinitely messier and more unpredictable than anyone ever plans for. So if we can't trust the flashy demos, what should we be looking for? Well, real progress in this field usually looks pretty quiet and, honestly, kind of boring from the outside. It's about the hard work of building better tests for an AI's reasoning ability, making autonomous agents more stable and reliable. And this is critical, developing safer ways to train these systems. That's where the real breakthroughs are happening.
Now, let's shift gears, because even if true AGI is still a long way off, the pursuit of it, the chase, is already having a huge impact on our world. Let's dig into the consequences that are happening right now.
The most obvious and immediate impact is in the workplace. These AGI-adjacent technologies, the super powerful specialized AI we have today, are already reshaping entire industries. We're seeing it in knowledge work, in creative fields, in R&D, and in day-to-day operations. This isn't some far-off future problem. It's happening as we speak. And of course, all this disruption forces us to walk an ethical tightrope. It raises these huge, difficult questions. How do we stop these systems from absorbing and even amplifying our own biases? If an AI makes a critical mistake, who's responsible? Can we ever really look inside a complex AI and understand why it made a certain choice? And maybe the biggest one, who gets to control this incredibly powerful technology?
The stakes here are just incredibly high, and they're deeply human. We are not just talking about jobs and the economy. The race towards AGI is set to touch everything: how we educate our kids, how our governments work, how we get healthcare, and even the very nature of our relationships with each other.
So, with all of that on the table, what do we do? How do we navigate this future? The key, the absolute key, is to be proactive instead of reactive. We have to be in the driver's seat, actively shaping how this technology gets built and rolled out.
On a personal level, for you and me, that means focusing on the skills that AI complements instead of competes with. Things like critical thinking, understanding how complex systems fit together, learning to be a great collaborator with an AI, having a strong ethical compass, and just plain old adaptability. Those are going to be the most valuable human skills of all. But look, it can't just be on us as individuals. That's not enough. We desperately need smart, thoughtful governance. We're talking about regulations that can actually keep up with how fast the tech is changing, global cooperation, and really strong safety standards to make sure this stuff is built for the public good.
Ultimately, what this all comes down to is we need to shift the entire public conversation. We have got to move past the two extremes of, it's going to save us all, and it's going to destroy us all. We have to reject this idea that technology just happens to us. Instead, we need informed conversations, constructive debate, and most importantly, we need to remember our own human agency in deciding what comes next.
And that really leaves us with this final crucial thought. The most important question isn't trying to guess a date for when AGI will arrive. The real question is recognizing that this isn't just another piece of tech. It's a turning point for society. And the choices that we all make today are going to decide what kind of future we build together.